It's Kendall here with Annie's and I'm back for another crochet tutorial today. Happy Friday. Today we're going to be using our Premier Parfait Chunky yarn. This is brand new on the Annie's site. All the links are down below, of course. This yarn is super fluffy, and even though it says it's a number 6 bulky, it's really thin, which is really nice, so it's going to be really easy to adapt patterns for if you want a fluffier look. The design I'm going to be using today is called Cuddle Bunnies. It was designed by Jody Rhodenizer. It is linked down below, of course, so you can follow along. This video I'm going to take you through some tips on using fluffy yarn because it's been known to be a little tricky, but with these tips it'll be nice, calm, and you'll be able to create beautiful designs. We also have brand new designs using this nice fluffy yarn coming to Annie's, and of course I will link it down below so you can check them all out. I'm adapting this pattern to use this yarn, so I'm going to make sure to use a little bit of a different hook size, but any sort of fluffy yarn will work for this really cute bunny. If you're changing the yarn like I am, you're going to want to check the gauge, but for the project in this video, I'm going to be using a 5.0 millimeter hook. Of course, it's in my Annie's crochet kit, which has all my crochet hooks and tapestry needles and stitch markers, and you're going to need your stitch markers today. And of course, I have my yarn, and let's get into the tutorial. So starting with the head, on the pattern you're going to see it says make a slip ring. Sometimes with fluffy yarn, a slip ring can be a little difficult. Slip rings, also known as a magic ring, because of all this fluff and the way this yarn is actually formed, which is a string with the fluff around it, as opposed to like twisted yarn. You can see that. So I'm going to show you an alternative. An alternative is making a slip knot. Then we're going to chain 4. So you can already see it's a little tough, but I promise you this outcome is going to be totally worth it. 1, 2, oof. Oh, 3 and 4. It's not actually that difficult, it's just difficult on camera. Then I'm going to make a slip knot, or slip stitch, excuse me, into the first chain that I made. I like to flip my tail around so it's not in the way, yarning over and pulling through for my slip knot. Slip stitch, my goodness. Okay, and now I have a ring. Round 1 says place 6 single crochets into it. Oh, so I got a chain 1. And then we're going to do our 6 single crochets into it. Now something you might notice is that I am actually yarning under instead of yarning over. This is a trick that's often used in amigurumi, but I like using it with fluffy yarn because I think it's just a little bit easier to manage. So normally you go like this. I wrap it around here under. That was single crochet 4. And here's 5. And here's 6. Now I'm going to put my stitch marker in. This is especially important for fluffy yarn because, as you can tell, it's a little difficult to see our stitches. So I'm adding my stitch marker in, and if this little gap is concerning to you, you can take your tail and weave it through. It's not a big deal for me. I know that once it gets fluffy, it's going to be a little tighter, but extra security, use a tail and close up the circle. Round 2 is an increase in each of the 6 stitches. Another trick I want to use is I want to start feeling for the stitches. For the first round, I like to work backwards just for my counts, because I know this was my last one because it has my stitch marker in it. So here's 1, I could feel, oh, that was 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then 1's right here. With the chain 1, I like to make sure that I'm going in the right stitch. And this piece is worked in a spiral, so we don't have to worry about that chain 1 too often. All right, here's 1, and then an increase is 2 single crochets in the same stitch. Just like that. And see, I can see this one pretty well, but you're just gonna be feeling it between the fluffy yarn. All right, so now that we have some of these tricks out of the way, I'm gonna make this head. Again, please download the pattern, which you can find below. This is going to help you get the exact details. This video is more of an overview of some tips and tricks, and just an overview on the pattern as a whole. Pattern specifics are going to be found on the actual pattern. This is my last one. All right. Yeah, looking good. See, my hole's a little smaller now. I don't know how that works, but somehow it does. I'll probably stitch it at the end though with the tail. But for the video, I'm gonna keep on going. All right, so I am going to complete this all the way up to round 8, which is this continually getting bigger. And then for rounds 9 through 15, which are all single crochet, I'm going to teach you a trick on how to mark your row so you don't have to go individually. So I'll see you at the end of round 8 before round 9. So this is the top of my head. It's going to be the base. And so the next few rounds, 9 through 15, are all single crochet. So instead of moving this every single time, I'm going to unhook it. And then I'm going to go through one of the lines of the stitch. You know how the stitches make these little lines and V's? I'm going through that. And now when I single crochet around, I'll know I get to the round when this lines up. And this kind of helps our lines just become a little bit more even, because sometimes rounds can shift, like the first and last stitch shift as you make more and more rounds. So this is going to help us keep track of that. All right, I'm going to single crochet in each round, 9 through 15, and then we're going to talk about 2 different ways to do decreases for round 16. So I'll see you then. I decided I'm going to make a mini version of the bunny. He's not that small, but he's smaller than the original picture there. I don't have a crazy amount of yarn because I did not order enough. So don't make my mistake, order enough yarn. This fluffy yarn can sometimes be deceiving. All right, let's talk about decreases though. So we're going to do a single crochet decrease. And there's 2 different ways. There's this sort of decrease when you yarn over, insert yarn over, pull through, so you have 2 loops. Into the next stitch, we're going to yarn over and pull through, so you have 3 loops, yarn over, and pull through all 3. This is a traditional decrease. It works pretty well, but there's also such thing as an invisible decrease, which can sometimes be a bit tricky when it comes to yarn. Fluffy yarn, excuse me, during my single crochets in between. Okay. So for an invisible decrease, you go through the front loop only, and then through the front loop only of the next stitch. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through again, just like a normal single crochet. So here it is over here. This is our original decrease. A little closer, you can see there's 3 lines. Then over here, it looks just like a normal single crochet. Up to you how you want to do it. Because this yarn's a little fluffy and sometimes it's hard to see the front loop, I will probably be doing a normal decrease, but I wanted to show you options in case you find that something's not working for you. A lot of crochet is just figuring out where it works and what doesn't for you, because everyone's different. You hold a yarn different, you hold your hook different, you do your stitches just a little differently. So I wanted to give you an option there. I'm going to be continuing to decrease and close this, and we're going to be stuffing. Because this is soft, you're going to want to put extra fluffing in it, because we want it to hold the shape as well as just continue to be fluffy. If you're going to go through all the effort of using such a fluffy yarn like Parfait Chunky, you're going to want to make sure your actual stuffed animal is squishy and huggable as well. To do that, we're going to pull our stuffing into small clumps and insert it one at a time. A little time consuming, but it will give you an overall fluffier look. Just make sure to add a lot, because this stuffed animal will be getting lots of hugs and lots of cuddles once you see how outrageously fluffy and cuddly it is. It's not called the Cuddle Bunnies for nothing. So I'm going to see when we finish the head and it's all stuffed, and then we can talk about embroidering the eyes and using acrylic yarn. Wait for it to do that. So I just finished our head. It is super fluffy. Got all my rounds. You're leaving it open. This will help to ensure you don't get that dreaded flocky neck syndrome when you sew it to the body and the head goes blah. This will make sure you can tighten it, and you can add extra stuffing to make sure it stays on there nice and straight. To embroider the eyes, I'm going to be doing the closed eyes, and to do that we actually mark it with a stitch marker. We're going to mark the outside and the inside about, and then I'm going to do the other eye so we can make sure they're nice and even. This is nicer than using a plastic safety eye because these can be used, embroidered eyes are great for people of all ages, while safety eyes shouldn't be used if the person is under 3. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it on the 4th? It's in the 4th. Okay. So the embroidery eye is a great way if you're making it for someone little. Okay, that looks pretty even to me. This is normal yarn, it's not fluffy, just worsted weight. On my tapestry needle, I got a pretty big piece. You can also use a bent tapestry needle if you find that a little easier. We're gonna start by going somewhere that's not where we wanna go and stick it in. And I'm going to go through one of the stitch marks. Pulling through, and I'm hiding that, but don't pull too much. We don't want it to come undone. And then through the other one. I'm going to take this out because I'm really afraid I'm going to stitch in it. And I'm making a straight line. Okay. Oh my gosh, that's so cute already. I'm doing 2 strands just because I like it to be a little bolder on the fluffy yarn. Sometimes they can hide. But when I go through the other side, I'm going to go down to create a V. So here's our double, and then I'm poked down below. Then I'm going to scoop the eye, and we're going to go down and then way over here for the second eye. Okay. You don't want to pull too tight, but you want to be able to keep the shape. You just don't want to like crazy bend it. Then I'm kind of playing around with my fingers. And that looks like a sleeping bunny to me. So let's do the other eye. And if you want to add eyelashes, you can do that too. I have not decided if I want eyelashes yet because I wanted to see how my eyes came out first. So I'm going down. I went down 1 row. Oh my goodness, sort of. I'm trying to make it even as possible. And then down. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And then I'm poking down anywhere that's not where you want to go. And this guy I'm going to pull out a little bit. It's a little uneven. And then I'm pulling the extra fiber strands because sometimes I get the stuffing on the black. So you just kind of pick that off. Let's take these and make sure they're even. I feel like this eye is smaller. Yeah, you feel that way too? Okay, I'll fix it off camera. But that should give you a good idea about how to embroider the eyes. Let's pull the picture back up. This one is felt eyes that were glued on with eyelashes. And then here's the sleepy eyes. I think I might add, no, maybe eyelashes on closed eyes are weird. I don't know. I'm gonna fix this eye to make it bigger, and then I'm gonna do our mouth the same way that we did these. It's just gonna be a little wider, and then I'm gonna embroider a straight line down as well. I think I did a pretty good job embroidering it. Next, I'm going to be crocheting the ear, and I'll show you how to make the bow, and then I will show you a super awesome trick that you will be using from now on how to sew things onto fluffy yarn or bulky yarn by using a different weight of yarn to help sew down the edges so it's nice and clean and super easy. But I'll explain all that later. Right now, off camera, I'm going to make an ear, and then we'll get together to sew it on. And then I will show you how to make the bow. We'll make that together and sew it on as well. So I just finished making the ear and I have my head, and let's sew it on. If you try to sew it with this tail, you might find it a little difficult because of the way, again, it's formed, which is the strand and then the fluffiness around it, as opposed to the twisted yarn like this. So we're actually going to take a strand of medium weight acrylic, normal, generic, cheapest yarn ever, and we're going to cut a strand and try to get as close to color as possible. I promise you off camera this is more similar than it looks. This is the color of mushroom. This is gray. It's as close as I got. So I have a long strand, I have it on my tapestry needle. We're going to use this to sew onto the head. If you need to, you can pin the ear onto the head with straight pins. I'm going to eyeball it because I'm feeling confident. I'm going to take this and go through 1 loop on the ear. And I'm going to tie a knot. Leave a long tail so you can weave this in a little later because we don't want anything to show. Okay, position the ear. Yep, we're going for it. And then you're just going to sew just like you normally would. I like going down through both pieces, through the ear, through the head, and then pull, and then up only through the ear. This is almost like an invisible seam. Just makes it a little easier. I'm going to go around this outside edge and then go in. You want to make sure your ear is nice and flat so it's extra floppy, because that's how the perfect bunny stuffed animal is made. So we're going down through, and sometimes I go through both, and sometimes I only go through the front loop. It just kind of depends on where it sits. It doesn't super matter. As long as it gets the job done. There's 100 different methods to sewing. My biggest thing is I don't want it to come undone. As long as my pieces stay, I am happy with it. Because you can also do the whip stitch, but note that if you are using acrylic yarn, your whip stitch is going to show more likely because that's when you go over. So then you'll see the stitches. Or the light gray yarn, not that big a deal, but if that is something that matters to you, is something to keep in mind. All right. So I still have to go down and do this other side, but as you can see, or you can't see, this almost disappears into it. I could even pull it a little tighter if I wanted to, and you're really not going to be able to see this different color. Of course, try to get a color as close as possible because you don't want to risk it. But this is a lot easier than using the tail, just because this is really tight. It's really hard to sew with. We'll still need to weave our ends in, but that's a whole lot easier with a big needle. And now we have this. So I want to finish sewing the ear, I'm going to hide my tails, and then we're going to talk about our last ideas right before we finish this. Okay, I want to show this real quick. Wow. I'm going to trim these off, but you're going to want to use a bigger needle with a bigger eye as opposed to the metal ones, just because it's going to be a little easier. So some people, me, put it in like this, but it might start shredding. So it's a little easier if you bend it and kind of pinch and then wiggle, wiggle, and then pull through. And now I can weave my end in, no problem. Okay, but first we have to make a bow. I think I'm gonna make 2 bows, one side of the other ear. So it's like little pigtails, it's gonna be super cute. This, I'm gonna be using blue yarn, and then I have my pattern I'm pulling over. So we're gonna start by chaining 27. If I can find the middle pull of this yarn, and I cannot. All right, we are chaining 27, 3, 4, 5, and 27. And then we're gonna half double crochet in the second chain from hook so that we have 26 half double crochets at the end. I would take this a little slow so you can make sure you're not skipping any gaps. As you can tell, it's a little difficult to see. So just take your time. We're gonna be doing this for a total of 3 rows. So you have 3 rows of half double crochets. And then we're gonna fasten off and leave a tail for sewing. And then we're gonna assemble it together. So I have my strip for the bow. We're gonna take our tail, make sure it's really long because it's just easier that way. Put it on our tapestry needle. We're gonna fold front, back, it's about the same. You're gonna fold your ends in. I'm gonna go through it just to stitch it and make sure it doesn't come undone. And then we're gonna wrap our tail around so that we get like the actual bow look and it's not just a rectangle. So here I'm just stitching through each end, really just so it doesn't come undone. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. And then you're gonna wrap this around, the pattern says 10 times, then pull tight so it actually looks like a bow. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, looking even? 9, 10. and then secure bow to head. Okay. I'm stitching, this is the back. I'm stitching through because my biggest fear in life is my crochet work coming undone. Oh, look at that, it's a cute little bow. Okay. It says sew it on the left ear, but I only have a right ear right now. Oh my gosh, it's cute. Again, you can use the trick of using the medium weight for acrylic yarn. Ugh, sorry for that shaky camera. I'm not going to right now. I'm not like crazy securing this the way I am the ear. So I'm just looping around the ear to the bow. I'm going through the center where we wrapped it around just because it's a little thicker. Oh, she's cute, y'all. Okay, I think I want to do a stitch onto the head as well, just so nothing comes undone and it doesn't wiggle. Okay. Going through the bow. Yep, there we go. Once more through the head. Okay, and then I am going to tie a square knot of my two blue ends together, and then we'll hide the tails. So I'm gonna hop off camera to do that, and then we'll do one last showcase before finishing up. Okay, one more tip, all these little shards, lint roller or pieces of tape. Don't try to sweep it up. It's the worst part about fluffy yarn, but it's so worth it to make it super soft and fluffy. But just use a lint roller to clean the table. Thank you so much for joining me today for this tutorial for the Cuddle Bunnies. As you can tell, I need to make another ear, the body, the arms, but I'm gonna use all the same tricks and tips, wow, that we talked about through the video, using acrylic yarn and doing the starts with a chain 4, and just all sorts of bits just to make this as fluffy and perfect as possible. Here's a picture. Again, I think we did pretty good today. All the supplies and details are listed down below. Go ahead and comment any questions you have about making things with chunky, fluffy yarn. Any differences, any questions, any problems you're running into, we'll try to answer them so you can crochet your next project. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Stay up to date with all of our new tutorials. We have a crochet tutorial coming out every Friday, just about, as well as stitch tutorials and just everything in between for your crochet yarn fun. Thanks for following along. Again, my name is Kendall here at Annie's Crafts, and keep on crocheting.